My name is Rachel. And 14 months from the night I'm about to describe, I watched my mother cry in front of 43 people, our entire extended family, everyone she'd personally called in for what she told them was a celebration. And not one person at that table moved to comfort her. Not even my sister. Hold that image. Because to understand how we got there, you need to understand everything that came before it. And that means starting with Marcus. Marcus and I were together for 4 years. He was steady and kind, and he laughed at the things I laughed at, and for a long time I told myself that was enough. My parents never agreed. Not loudly, our family didn't do loud, but in the way they greeted him at the door, which was the way you greet a serviceman. In the way my father called him Michael at Thanksgiving in year 3, in front of everyone, and nobody corrected it, not even me, because I was already too tired. In the way my mother once looked at Lauren's husband at Christmas dinner, at his pressed collar, and his regional director's title, and his easy way of filling a room, and then looked at Marcus, who was a high school art teacher, and smiled the quiet smile of a woman exercising profound restraint. Marcus didn't leave entirely because of my family. I don't want to give them that. But when things got hard in year 4 the way things always eventually do, I had nowhere to take the weight of it. I called home after he moved out, and my mother listened for 2 minutes before she said, "Lauren always thought you two were a little mismatched." Marcus had been my home. And then I was in an apartment 40 minutes north, with secondhand furniture, too much silence, and a kitchen light that buzzed faintly when the temperature dropped. That's why I lived alone. I need you to understand that, because it matters to everything that follows. People always hear the Christmas story and imagine one random cruelty inside an otherwise ordinary family. But it was never one thing. It was the most recent line in a paragraph that had been written my entire life. There was the college graduation my parents didn't attend, not traffic, not a conflict, just an absence. My sister's high school dance recital had been framed and hung beside the front door, the first thing you saw walking in. There was the recession year I lost my job and called home, and my mother's response was to mention that Lauren never seemed to have that problem. There were birthdays with the wrong cake that no one corrected, Christmases where Lauren's gifts covered the living room floor, and mine arrived in a department store bag reused from something else. Thanksgivings where I drove 3 hours and sat with people who shared my last name and felt more invisible than I ever did alone. That was the family I still drove south to see every December. Lauren arrived 20 minutes late that Christmas in the coat she'd bought in Milan. She made sure to mention Milan and filled the room the way she always did, warm, certain, completely unaware there was any other way to walk through a door. I found out later she had known about the gifts in advance. She had been consulted. She had agreed. The envelopes came out after dinner. Lauren's first, always Lauren's first. Inside, a 14-day Mediterranean cruise. Full itinerary, port maps, embarkation details. My mother had wrapped a new suitcase to go with it, soft-sided, spinner wheels, TSA lock, nested in ivory tissue paper like something precious. Then my envelope. Small. Red. My father's handwriting on the front. Inside, a scratch-off lottery ticket. $2. The kind from the rack at the gas station on Route 9, between the car fresheners and the reading glasses display. My father was already laughing when I opened it. Not reacting to it, already laughing as though he had been waiting for this moment since he'd sealed the envelope. We know which daughter to invest in. Lauren smiled into her wine glass. Not at me, just smiled, the way you do when a joke doesn't concern you. My mother said nothing. She smoothed the tissue paper flat on the table in front of her and said nothing. I folded the ticket. Put it in my coat pocket. Someone changed the subject. Dinner ended and I cleared the dishes because I always cleared the dishes, and I kissed my parents goodnight with the muscle memory of someone who had done it so many times it had lost all its weight, and I drove home in the dark. Exit 14. My parking lot. Cold car with the engine off. No radio. I scratched the ticket with the edge of my house key the way you do when you're not hoping, when the motion itself is the whole point. First number. Match. I told myself it was nothing. Second number. Match. My hands went still. Third number. Match. I remember the yellow circle of the parking lot light through the windshield. A car passing somewhere on the street behind me. The particular silence of a cold car with the engine off. My heartbeat, which had become very loud, very suddenly, like it was the only sound left in the world. 3 matching numbers. I turned the ticket over. Read the back. Set it flat on the passenger seat and stared at it for 22 minutes because I was a woman who had just been told, calmly, in front of her sister who smiled, that she was not the daughter worth investing in. And that $2 ticket was telling me something else entirely. I went inside. Made tea. Laid the ticket under the buzzing kitchen light and stared at it until the numbers went soft and then sharp again. My phone stayed quiet all night. By morning, I had 79 missed calls. 14 voicemails. All from my parents. But the first message that actually came through wasn't from my mother. It wasn't from my father. It was from Lauren. Not a call. A screenshot. And that screenshot is the exact reason what happened 14 months later unfolded the way it did. Lauren had meant to send it to our parents privately. She sent it to the family group chat instead, the one that still included me, both parents, my Aunt Carol, and my grandmother. I don't know if she forgot I was in it or simply never thought about me being in it at all. Either way, at 6:47 in the morning, I opened my phone and watched the thread populate in real time. Lauren had written, "Dad, you know that scratch-off you gave Rachel? She actually won. Like $500,000. Lottery records are public. Someone from high school just texted me. Kind of insane, right? Faced with tears of joy, do you think we should call her now, LOL?" I read it twice. Slowly. Then my father's reply appeared. Seriously? Get her on the phone. Does she have a new number? Then my mother. Oh my goodness. We have to reach her right away. She needs her family. Not one word about the ticket. Not one word about the dinner table. Not one word about what my father had announced, laughing, for hours earlier. Just immediate, frictionless mobilization. She needs her family. She needs us. I screenshotted the entire exchange, Lauren's message, both replies, the timestamps. I saved it to a folder I named simply, Table. Then I put the phone face down and stared at the ceiling. I didn't return a single call for 11 days. When I finally picked up for my mother, she cried. She said she'd been worried sick. She said she only wanted to be part of this with me. After I hung up, I wrote that sentence down and taped it inside my cabinet door, part of this with you, right where I'd see it every morning reaching for a mug. I taped the screenshot beside it so both sat together. I needed to be able to look at both things at the same time. The months that followed were the most intentional of my life. I paid off every loan in a single phone call that lasted 4 minutes. I found the house with the birch trees, 2 bedrooms, a yard, a neighborhood where no one knew my name yet, and I signed the papers without asking anyone's opinion. I enrolled in the program I had deferred twice. I replaced my furniture one piece at a time with things I actually chose. Slowly, I stopped carrying the low-grade readiness that had followed me out of that family and into every apartment I'd ever rented. I started sleeping through the night. That sounds small. It wasn't. Around month 3, my parents resumed calling. My father had a new warmth, the kind that has a studied quality to it, familiar the way weather is familiar, recognizable and cold just underneath. My mother mentioned twice that the cruise had gone over budget. That things were unexpectedly tight. She said it the way you drop a sentence you need someone to respond to without technically asking. I kept my answer short. I looked at my cabinet door when I needed to remember clearly. 8 months after that Christmas, my mother organized a family gathering. A celebration, she called it. She phoned my grandmother, my Aunt Carol, every cousin within a reasonable drive. She told them Rachel had come into wonderful fortune, that she and my father were so proud, that they had always known there was something extraordinary in me. People I hadn't heard from in years suddenly remembered they had my number. The dinner was at my parents' house. 14 people. The good china. The candles my mother only brought out when she needed an evening to feel a certain weight. After dessert, my father stood and raised his glass. He had prepared remarks. He spoke about family as the bedrock of everything, about how he and my mother had always supported both daughters, differently, yes, at different times, in the ways each one needed. He said it with the settled confidence of a man who had worked this framing out in advance and found it satisfying. Then he reached beside his chair and lifted a foam display board he had apparently made. Photographs of me. A printed timeline. A caption running across the top in block letters. We always knew. My grandmother touched her chest. My Aunt Carol nodded. I looked at the foam board. Then I reached into the inside pocket of my blazer and removed a folded sheet of paper. I told the table I wanted to share something too, since we were already celebrating. I said it was a document I had saved. A screenshot of a family group message from the morning after last Christmas, and I thought everyone present should hear it read aloud. I read Lauren's message first. The 500,000. The public records. Kind of insane, right? Faced with tears of joy, do you think we should call her now LOL? Lauren set her fork down slowly. I read my father's reply. Seriously? Get her on the phone. His expression shifted. I read my mother's. She needs her family. The room went completely still. I folded the paper once. I said, quietly, that this message had been sent 30 minutes after my father laughed at the dinner table and told the room, in front of Lauren, in front of my mother who smoothed the tissue paper and said nothing, that the family knew which daughter to invest in. I said the ticket he had handed me laughing had been in my coat pocket the entire time he was saying it. I looked at the foam board. At the caption. We always knew. I said, you didn't always know. You found out at 6:47 in the morning. And then you needed my number. Lauren said it had been a private conversation. That I was pulling it out of context. I said, so was the scratch-off. My grandmother set her water glass down on the table very deliberately and did not pick it back up. My father stood. He said my name once, low, controlled, the voice I had known my entire life, the one that arrived in the moment just before his anger found its presentable shape, and walked out. My mother followed him. She paused at the doorway and looked back at the room with the careful expression of someone taking an inventory of exactly who had seen what. Lauren sat with both hands flat on the tablecloth and looked at nothing. And here is the part that stayed with me longest. Nobody rushed to fill the silence. Not one person at that table moved to defend them, to redirect the conversation, to smooth the evening back into something manageable. My grandmother looked at the foam board. My Aunt Carol looked at her plate. The room simply allowed what had been said to sit there and be what it was. After a long moment, my grandmother reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. She kept it there. I drove home on the same highway, past exit 14. The birch trees in my yard caught the porch light when I turned in. I sat in the car not because anything felt unresolved, but because I wanted to hold the specific quality of that quiet. The stillness of a thing fully said, in a room full of people who needed to hear every word of it, with nothing softened. My mother texted 4 days later. 6 measured lines about family complexity, different perspectives, how she hoped I could access compassion. I read it once. I didn't respond. The sentence in my cabinet still says what it says. But I don't need to look at it anymore. I already know exactly what I'm dealing with. And so, now, does everyone else.